My Turn podcast, a gaming podcast hosted by extra competitive siblings. My name's Jem and I'm joined today by my honorary sibling, Tim. Hello.
Hi, Jem. Hello, nice to see you. Thanks for having me back on this lovely sunny afternoon.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? We're getting spring coming along now.
It's lovely, but what this means is that, in all honesty, my video game playing is probably going to reduce a little bit as I explore the great outdoors, but my desire for board gaming is going to increase.
Hell to the hell yeah. I totally concur. I can't wait to play board games again. And here in the UK at the moment, are we allowed to play board games yet with people outside of our household? Because we had this weird rule, didn't we? Like when we were being told we could have a lockdown Christmas where we were encouraged not to play board games because we'd be touching all the pieces.
Yeah, I think it depends on the board games. I think you have to have games where the pieces are discrete. Like battleships, for example, maybe.
Yeah, I've actually got that. It's one of the only games that Alex, my partner, and I have played while we've been locked down, because he's not the biggest board game fan, but we did play a really old school version of battleships.
You know you're allowed to touch him though, right?
Am I? Damn it! He spent months telling me no!
Any excuse.
Think of
the
COVID.
government said so. Hands off.
Damn it. I need to tell him. Yeah, well, I'm still really trying to rattle through a couple of big games on the old Xbox that I want to get done before it gets too warm. Yeah, so I'm going to try and rattle through those. And then, yeah, I agree with you. Once we can get outside, once we're allowed to touch board game pieces again, I cannot wait to kind of have a picnic and a big board game sesh.
Yeah, I cannot wait to touch your pieces.
Well, as we've just heard, that'll be the most action I've had in over a year. So thank you, Tim. I look forward to the day.
You're welcome.
So, shall we review some games? This is a gaming podcast after all. So we are going back to our standard podcast format where each of us have played a game recently. We are going to review it and chat about it. And why don't we start with you, Tim? What game have you got for us today?
Okay, so I've been playing with Kitty Letter.
Oh,
Don't worry,
you
wash my
disgust
hands.
me.
Wash my hands.
Thought you were
Government
allergic to
rules
cats.
and all. I am. Pussies make my eyes itch and I stop breathing. So none of that for me normally. The hairy ones especially, because it gets right up my nose. Anyway, the game I've been playing, to clarify, Kitty Letter with an E.
Yes, Kitty Letter, okay.
Kitty Letter. So this is a game from the Oatmeal, which is a webcomic and now an expanding business of many games as well, most famously something like Exploding Kittens, and the guy behind that, Matthew Inman, and a partnership with Matt Wood, who is the lead for Double Dagger Studio. So they have released this mobile game, Kitty Letter, in February of this year, both on iOS and Android. It was, in fact, Matthew's lockdown project.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, he said he'd recently moved house onto an island in Puget Sound, which is sort of Seattle area. And he was like, I realised how isolated I became moving to a little island in a rainy place in lockdown. And so decided to attempt some coding, and so he's made this mobile game.
Ah, okay. So we know a bit. I mean, you and I have both played a few of the other Oatmeal produced games, like as mentioned, Exploding Kittens and Bears v Babies. What was your expectation of this game going in?
So my expectation, I'll start with the negative, is that I very rarely play mobile games.
Okay.
I don't like mobile games in general, as a rule. And I'll let Matthew explain why in a moment, actually, because I might as well. So I don't like mobile games. I find them very annoying. But I do like word games, of which this is a word game, very much so. In fact, the only permanent mobile game I have on my phone is the Countdown app. Um, and but also, I love the Oatmeal. I love the comics. I love the adorable illustration style,
Yeah.
cartoon style. I love the informative pieces he does as well, explaining stuff about science. And I love the humor that comes with it. It's naughty, but it's not too gross. I just think it's all very adorable. So I thought, should I give this game a go? And I looked at the statement that the Oatmeal put out about the game, and this explains why I also do not like mobile games. So he said, I hate free-to-play games. I hate games built entirely around player retention and tricking people into keeping the app open as long as possible. I hate coins, currencies, chests, and other money printing schemes disguised as fun. For Kitty Letter, I tried to just make the game as enjoyable as possible. This means that sometimes the chapters are long and almost seem to be discouraging you from playing. There's an entire chapter built around slapping a trout in order to defrost it. And some musical deer that make sexy groans for way too long. I tried to just build a short-lived, likeable game rather than a mediocre game stretched across months of free-to-play garbage mechanics. Some naughty language coming up.
Okay.
Fuck retention, fuck in-game currencies, embrace the trout, I say, embrace the groaning deer. So with a statement like that, how could you not give it a go? But do you know what I mean? I agree with all that stuff. That's what I don't like about mobile gaming. It's just gamification. It's not a game.
Yeah, 100%. And the only mobile games I have played are ones that I've just bought, so that don't have that because you've just bought it. You paid $1.99 or $2.50 or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm the same. So what is this game about in a nutshell?
So he sort of describes it as words with enemies. It doesn't have a Scrabble board. It's more like you have a selection of letters that you have to create words from. So it's more like Boggle in that sense at its core. But there's a competitive element to it in that when you create words, it turns them into exploding cats that you then send out of your house to your neighbour's house. And your neighbour is doing the same. Likewise, and they can send kind of exploding cats in your direction. So it's got a little bit of that. I'm sure there are many games that have that dynamic where they're sending killer things towards you, but Plants vs. Zombies comes to mind as an example. Yep. It's not as complicated as that, but you see what I mean. You form words, you send things out to the other side to either protect you or to attack the other person. Along with that, you may have heard the pooping deer thing. These are deer that cross your path and then will drop bonuses. So if you send your cats out, you can collect bonuses as well, like a Hoover that will eliminate a row of cats that are coming towards you, or a fork in the road that makes them split. That kind of thing, for example. You should also be aware of the spider pug. Which is adorable.
I already know what this will look like without even looking at it, because I'm quite familiar with the artwork.
Yeah, the artwork is so distinctive. It's got all the typical tropes you expect from the Oatmeal. So the spider pug will scramble your opponent's letters. There's a zombie round. There's even a round where you can journey inside your own body to fight sickness.
Like Inner Space.
Like Inner Space, exactly. So that's
a film from the 80s for anyone who doesn't know.
Oh yeah, I just assumed everyone would know what that is. They won't, will they?
No. We're old, Tim, you forget that.
Yeah. So there's two main modes you can play it in. You can play it as like an online multiplayer, either with a random person or with a friend by inputting a code. But there's also a campaign mode, which is the main story mode, which is by far the better experience of the two. So that's in a nutshell. I will go into detail, a bit more detail, I suppose, about what the story mode is in what I like.
Yeah, so is this basically a turn-based castle defense, if you want to kind of sum up the style of game?
You both play at the same time.
Oh, you're playing at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so you've got to move quickly. Like you have to be forming your words rapidly, like when you've got a minute in Boggle, for example.
Oh,
you have to find as many words as you can.
Oh gosh. Oh, okay. So the stakes are higher than what I thought. Oh, okay.
The stakes are high.
So tell me about what you really liked about this game. What are the kind of standout positives?
So by far, it's the campaign mode. It's the story that they've put together. You would expect nothing less from the Oatmeal. It's
Yeah.
essentially 12 comics put into a game. So every level, it's not, and here's the new mechanic. There's a little story that goes with it, and of course, the stories are ridiculous.
Yes.
So the story begins with you finding out that you have a neighbour who has a caravan across the other end of the lawn, and he's described as a crazy cat man, and he keeps sending exploding cats to your house. So this is the premise of what you have to battle. Fortunately, you have a word vortex in your house. Along with, you get a tour of your house, and it's like, here's the chair. Do you know what this does? Here's a toilet. Do you know what this does? Here's the word vortex. Are you familiar with the word vortex?
That's really funny.
So the onboarding is the core of the game.
Right.
It's so fun. So you learn how to do that and defend your house, and then of course, you know, more kind of spanners get thrown into the mix. But you have to do things like, he said there was a round where you slap a trout. So he wants to cook the trout, and you have to. It's one of those stupid sort of tap games that they're taking the mick out of. You keep doing it, and it doesn't move from 1% for a good 20 seconds. You're like, oh, surely not. And then, of course, you know,
And then it does, right.
yeah, but you know, you can actually cook meat by slapping it.
Yeah, it's something to do with like breaking down the fibers.
Yeah. I saw someone build a stupid machine of this. It was like a hand that kept coming around and slapping the meat, and it was like I built a machine to slap my meat to cook it.
Yeah. Do you think all this was inspired by Monty Python?
I mean, very possibly. I don't know how far back meat slapping goes. It's not slapping someone with a fish, to be clear. You are slapping the fish so you can eat it, but it comes back to bite you. So this is what causes you to be sick, and you have to go inside your body.
Too much fish slap.
Fight the bugs.
Slapping.
Too much fish slapping. Exactly. There's another round which introduces you to the deer bonuses, where you get the option to buy like a $40 album of deer groaning to sexy Barry White music. Again, it plays for far too long. So if you're the kind of person who would play a mobile game in public with the sound on, just be wary. I mean, don't do that anyway because it's annoying, but that would serve you right. So there's lots of examples, I think, through the way they tell that story and the way the game itself is created, whether it's completely free, there is no leveling up or any of that sort of stuff, which makes it an anti-mobile game. Right. So mobile game as the antithesis of what most mobile games are. And that's the light in which I view this experience. Is I'm looking at someone who doesn't like mobile games, and I can now kind of play this experience. So what I love about it is that for me, it's closer to a commentary on games than a game itself. The game is fun, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed playing the game, but you can play any version of that word game somewhere else, probably. The point of playing this one is have a look at what this guy doesn't like about it and how he's sort of satirizing it. That's what I really enjoyed.
Sounds really clever.
Mm-hmm.
And joyful.
I mean, yeah, it's so funny. And I say you can play the campaign in probably an hour, let's say. Okay. Maybe under. And then you can be done with it. You know, you can be like, that was a great experience. I didn't pay anything. I had a laugh. I had a bit of a game. It was lovely.
Okay. And is there anything about the game that you found less positive or...
Yeah, absolutely. So the multiplayer experience is quite difficult to get going and to synchronize. It's a bit clunky. Like I tried it a couple of times. You have to exchange passcodes out of the app on something else because you can't kind of come back in and out. And it was difficult to know whether the other person's connected. So the connection issues were a little bit tricky, but I did give it a go a few times, and it did make us laugh, and it was quite fun. It just that it's not. It feels like it's an extra. It feels like it's an add-on to the experience. It wouldn't keep me coming back to the app to play the multiplayer experience. I'd rather play the campaign experience again, which probably tells you something. The other thing is that the mix of letters you get is not infinite or random. So I don't think they've put a whole dictionary in there, for example. I think there's a finite set of arrangements for the letters they've got in there, because I did play the campaign again prior to doing this from the first time I played it, and I noticed some repetition in the letters. I was like, oh, I remember that word from last time, and I remember that from last time. So it's not, truly as random as it could be. And there's a device as well whereby obviously you can get to the end of possibilities that you have for your letters, especially if you're playing against someone else, because there's a mechanic whereby you can't repeat words. So if they've already input a word, you can't have it. So at some point you're going to run out, and it then refreshes and turns into new letters. But I feel like it can take quite a long time. So
what you mean, the actual refreshing process?
Yeah, it takes a long time to kick in to say, okay, we'll refresh your letters because you're not doing anything. Like maybe it's 10 seconds where it could be 5.
Right.
And the reason why that's a bit of a mechanic problem, I feel, is because I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to rapidly, do as many words as I can think of, and they all begin with the letter P, and then I move on to something else, and all my words go in attack. If your opponent is attacking you with a word beginning with P, you have to have one beginning with P to go back at them. So it's not just any word. It goes in different lanes depending on what letter it starts with. Now, if I've been really kind of enthusiastic about something to begin with, and they come back with another letter and I haven't got any more words, I could wait almost the duration of their cat coming towards me until my selection refreshes.
Oh, yeah, of course, because the whole time the cat is getting closer.
Yes. So it means that you find yourself not going as fast as you might want to in terms of your word selection, because you're always holding a couple back in case you need to fight back. It's like an extra layer of complication maybe you don't need in the game.
Yeah, that seems strange.
So there are a couple of little mechanics that weren't quite right for me. None of that detracted from the campaign experience, though.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know. And did you find that it was accessible? I mean, you're really good at Scrabble and, word-based games, figuring stuff out with random letters. Would this be accessible to someone who finds sort of anagrams and things like that a bit trickier, do you think?
Yeah, it absolutely is, because first of all, you can guess. There's, it doesn't penalise you if you get anything wrong.
Okay, that's good.
So you can keep guessing combinations, and on top of that, there are lots of mechanics which, because I get distracted by trying to form long words, my opponent might be like, well, I've just bashed out a few 3-letter ones, and I managed to pick up that bonus tool because I was looking at where they were landing, and there you go, have a spider pug. So there are lots of extra mechanics to level the playing field, and it's not just about who can create the longest word or even the most words. There is a little bit more strategy to it, so it's totally accessible. And so my favourite thing is that it doesn't penalise you for getting it wrong, because I think that's quite important.
Yeah. As someone who myself struggles with anagrams and also spelling, like certain words I really struggle with spelling, so that is good to know, because that would just stress me out otherwise. Especially with a cat that's about to explode in my house coming towards me. Not so good. So is there anything that you haven't mentioned already about this game that is worthy of note, or like anything else you'd want to highlight?
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a few things I just want to add on. One is that at the end of the game, your ultimate revenge on your neighbour is you get to write a bad review about them on badneighbour.com or whatever.
Badneighbour.com.
It asks you to choose like a list of adjectives or something, and then it puts it into a preformed review. And they're really funny. It's a really satisfying way to end the game. And again, it's a satire on something like a mobile game, because it's like, now you've played it, write a review. But it's not asking you to write a review of the mobile game. It's like, write a review of your opponent that is so cruel it reduces them to tears.
And
amazing. It's a really good twist on it. there was a couple of other things I was going to mention about them. Just that I don't know whether you heard about this, but the Oatmeal were going to put on a festival called Burning Cat.
No, I didn't hear
You heard
about
about
this.
this? So this was scheduled to happen in May 2020, got delayed because of the pandemic. Obviously, it's postponed indefinitely, but I'm sure it will happen again at some point in Portland,
Burning
Oregon.
Cat
But
Festival.
it's a piss take of Burning Man,
Yeah.
but where everyone gathers together to play board games.
Oh my God, can we
And
go?
at the end, they're going to burn an enormous wooden cat. I would love to go.
Can we go?
Love
Can we
to.
please go? That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. That sounds like my idea of heaven.
Yes, exactly. So when Matthew Inman sort of took a step back from doing the Oatmeal comics to spend more time kind of investing in games and filmmaking as well, he got quite a lot of funding from people, and this was one of the main things he was putting his investment into was Burning Cat. So I'm sure it will be back. The investment's there. It's quite lots of money as well. So that's one thing I was going to mention. The other thing is just that they announced that they've just released a new letter-based game, which is a board game called A Little Wordy, and I cannot wait to play it in person. It's a similar sort of thing of like you get tiles like Scrabble tiles and you have to create a word out of it. Then what happens is your opponent has to guess the word that you've created from your tile. So it's a bit like Scrabble and Guess Who or Cluedo. And in order to help them, you have like cards that you draw, which means you can ask for certain clues by spending berries, and it's the person with the most berries at the end that wins. So it's not necessarily about who's created the longest word, or it's not certainly not the most words. It's who can create a deceptive word, and then who can guess best the word that the other person has played, which I think is a great combo of games. He seems to be doing a lot of mashups of things.
Yeah.
So A Little Wordy, it's called. That is out.
Oh
now,
my gosh! And
actually.
what are the characters on that? Because all his games have some kind of character at the front and center of it.
Yeah, they do, don't they? I've seen little birds.
Oh, that would make sense with the berries.
Yes, exactly. Little Tweety birds, but there's all sorts of things. There's one on the card. There's one called a Manatweet. YOLO Dodo.
It sounds like birds, yeah.
Dinosaur.
Okay, well, dinosaurs are birds. Birds are dinosaurs.
Quid pro quail. Yeah, it's all birds.
That sounds great. Okay, well, that's going on the Christmas list.
Yeah, absolutely want it. Oh, there's one more thing I'll mention, which is just that I'm having a beer.
Yeah.
And I like to drink to theme. So this is an IPA, but it has oats in it.
Yeah.
Oatmeal IPA.
Oatmeal. Oh, I see.
And I did this on purpose, and I forgot to mention on the podcast last time when we were doing Assassin's Creed Valhalla that I was purposely drinking. No, I was drinking a beer with that was made with Kvike yeast, which is a particular strand of yeast to Norway. It's a Norwegian farmhouse yeast. So I just want to say I've been drinking to theme to the games as well.
Well, you get a gold star, Tim, for that.
Thanks.
Oh, so on that note, who would you recommend this game to?
I think anyone should play the campaign mode. It's free, it doesn't take long, it's a great satire on mobile gaming, it's a fun game, and it's a hilarious comic. So yeah, absolutely anyone.
Yeah, sounds like a no-brainer. I'm gonna download it today. Oh, brilliant. And it's time for the all-important rating. What would you rate this game out of 10?
It's so tricky because as a word mobile game, as a multiplayer game, I think I'd have to go down to like a 7 or maybe even a 6 for the multiplayer function. But for what it is, it's campaign mode, and for the reason he created it and the joy I got out of playing that, I'd have to go for a 9.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice caveats there. So hopefully you will understand why those ratings have been applied. Thank you so much, Tim. I really want to play this. And also for anyone, obviously you can't see Tim's face, but while he's been talking about this game, you've just been grinning from ear to ear the whole time. I've never seen you so happy when reviewing a game.
Well, it's just delightful. The oatmeal just brings me so much joy. I just think it's so cute and hilarious.
Yeah, we've been big fans of it for a long time. I'm such a huge fan. I'm always like I feel so blessed that he actually did a drawing of my old rabbit George, like years
Yeah.
ago. Like I have a little digital drawing by Matthew, and that just like I'm like yay.
Yeah. It's going to be worth a
Right.
lot of money one day.
Well, yeah, will it? Because it's just a digital file. Don't know.
Yeah. All the news is full of how much non-fungible tokens are worth these days.
Oh my gosh. Well, I need money. Shall I sell it? No, I don't want to sell it. I love
No,
it.
hold on to it. Hold on to it
it.
for a while. Right, you're going to tell me about yours, please. What are you doing? What are
Yes.
you doing? What have you been playing?
So I have been playing a game called Genesis Noir, and I've been playing that on Xbox Series X because it is on the Game Pass. So this game is a noir adventure video game developed by Studio Feral Cat Den. And in a nutshell, it follows the main character, who's a little dude called No Man, as he visits different parts of the universe while trying to save his love. And it was released quite recently on March the 26th. And it was released on Windows, Mac OS, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch. I don't think it's on PlayStation currently, but the reason I kind of picked it up is because it dropped on Game Pass, and we had a look at it, and the artwork is really distinctive. So that's kind of what piqued my interest going in.
Right. So we've spoken on a previous episode actually about expectations of noir games, like particularly reference to film and so forth. With the artwork attracting you, did that feed into your expectations, or was there something else about the game you'd heard?
Yeah, so very much the artwork. So for myself and my partner, we just saw the title tile come up on the Game Pass, which is the sort of subscription, the live gaming subscription we have on Xbox. And it just looks really intriguing. So it looks like a sort of film noir comic. So that's the sort of style. It's sort of black, white, and grey. And then all the highlight stuff is in yellow. So the main text is in yellow. But it's just it's got a really distinctive look to it. And we're both fans of film noir. So we were like, that looks cool. I wonder if it actually is a sort of film noir game. And then we did look at a couple of reviews without reading them, but just for top line. And it looked like it was getting well reviewed because it has only just come out. So we were like, oh, well, we'll give this a go. And it looked like a shorter game. So we were like, well, this is quite a nice game to play kind of together. So we expected it to be maybe a sort of puzzly adventure game. Something that looked quite cool, maybe utilised a bit of film noir as well, in the artwork and style. So that's what we sort of expected of it.
And were those noirish expectations played out in due course, or were you betrayed?
Oh, well, very good. So, right away you are plunged into this kind of 1940s 1950s kind of cityscape, and it's all black and white, and you're walking through the crowds with your like hat, your little trilby on, and there's a bad guy, and you kind of look like a detective, and then there's a femme fatale straight away. So you get all those elements right away, and it seems like at the top of the game you are solving some kind of mystery. So yeah, when you start playing the game, you're like, oh, okay, this will be exactly what you think it will be based on the artwork. And also, there is an amazing jazz soundtrack to the whole thing.
Ooh, lovely.
Yeah, straight in there with the jazz.
It's essential. It's essential for any noir experience, isn't it? Oh, sorry. So, what can you tell us then about, the gameplay and any more of the story, obviously, without giving away the twists?
Yeah, right. So this is very much a point and click style adventure game. there's a lot of pointing and clicking, I will say that. So there isn't a great deal of puzzling or really anything that resembles any game that I've really played before. So this is very much I guess I'd describe it as a sort of film noir if it were a graphic novel on a digital reader.
Mm-hmm.
So that very much is the experience going through, that you can't really discover anything that the game wasn't going to let you discover anyway. So it's very much going through the motions of the game with very, very minimal elements of very, very light puzzle, but these are really, really minimal. So the game itself is you going through this journey with No Man, who is your protagonist. And very quickly you realise that this is all there's a lot of allegory going on. So everything that you see with the three characters, this kind of love triangle between No Man, the femme fatale character who is called Miss Mass, and the antagonist who's called Golden Boy. So those three characters, quickly you realise that they're sort of analogous almost to the Big Bang. So there's this whole other thing that very quickly you're like, oh, this is about the Big Bang. The whole game is about the Big Bang. So then you're like, okay, Genesis Noir. This is about the beginning of things. And just having a little read about the game after I finished it, or just before I finished it actually, I read that the designers basically were inspired to make this game after reading Italo Calvino's Cosmicomics. So they got very into this kind of idea of the beginning of the universe and the visual representations of it, and I guess how you can kind of weave that into a story that's kind of hooked onto characters. So they've basically used those three characters to take you through the story of the beginning of the universe. It sounds really mad. And it kind of is mad. Like this game, before I get on to what I liked and didn't like, this game very much is completely unique. I've never played anything like this. It hasn't really got a narrative that you can really sum up or follow even while you're playing it. You are kind of like, this is more about the experience than it is about a narrative through line. Although there is a narrative through line, that really isn't that clear, and it doesn't really drive the plot. It's more about picking breadcrumbs up that takes you through the story. And it's a really unusual game. It's very hard. Now I'm talking about it, I'm realising how hard it is to describe. But yeah, it's a game that sort of unfolds on you rather than having a clear, like, oh, this is a mystery, I'm going to pick up clues. You're not really picking up clues, although it's framed in a way that you are, but you're not, because as you pick them up, they're just threads about time and the universe and energy that could have come at you in any order, but it's been structured in the way it has in the game. In a way, it seems slightly haphazard, the way that elements of story hit you. But yeah, it's a very sensual experience in that it's completely of the senses, with the music, with the way that the frames of the game are built and layered and transition from one to the other. It's really super unique and very like sensually immersing.
Nice, I get it.
Yeah.
You might have felt that was difficult to explain, but I'm with you. It sounds very much like a pop-up scrapbook made by Carl Sagan or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the for anyone who's seen Soul, the Disney Pixar film, a lot of the drawing style is very similar to what is in that kind of afterlife section of Soul. So yeah, it's kind of like the line drawings, and it's all on a kind of monochrome scale, with this just yellow is the one highlight color. So yeah, it's really gorgeous to look at. I think you could pretty much take a frame from any moment in the game and you could put that on your wall because it looks amazing.
Nice. Well, I want to know what you particularly liked about it. But the question I've also got in my head, which I will ask now in case I forget, but you can answer it any time you like, is just, do you think it would work better as a graphic novel? But tell me what you liked about it as well.
I will answer that question.
Save that.
Yeah, I'll put a pin in that because I think that is what I thought the whole time I was playing it. But so what I loved about this game, which I've touched on already, I guess, is the way it looks. Like the design is amazing. The visual design is amazing. The sound design is amazing, apart from one section, which I'll come on to later. And the way, the transitions are just so inventive. Like the way that a chapter, I can't really, it's really weird. It's a game that doesn't have a really strong narrative, as in a story.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really talk about a lot of it without spoiling it. So what I'll say is like some of the little chapters within the game, the way that you transition in and out of them is really, really cool. So the camera does amazing things. So it really does feel like you're on a ride with the director of an art house noir that happens to be a video game. And so you feel like you are being directed. So even the things you point and click on, you can only point and click on maybe one or two things per frame that you're seeing. So a lot of the time you're like, what am I meant to click? What am I meant to click? But when you do get the thing, it is so cool the way that it kind of zooms you into the shot, flies you sideways, then suddenly your character drops down into an asteroid field, for example, and then you land on a tiny planet and then flowers pop up everywhere. But like the whole, it's just so dynamic. It's really cool. And I just, like the whole beginning of the game, I was like, wow, like a little kid, like, wow, this is amazing. So that is all super positive. And just some of the elements of the game were just so weird to be put into a game. Like there's a bit, throughout the game, there's kind of a motif of popping bubbles, and they're normally associated with alcohol because it's kind of got this noir feel. So he's occasionally slugging from a bottle or down in what looks like a whiskey, and then bubbles appear, and then your job is to pop all the bubbles, and then more bubbles appear, and then you pop them again. Now this sounds stupid and boring, but it's really relaxing and nice.
Sure, yeah. Like bubble wrap.
Yeah. But there's things like that. Like you might be popping bubbles, or you might be popping hearts, or you might be popping flowers. But there's this sort of trippy relaxation to it because it looks so gorgeous and the sound work is so good that while you're doing it, you feel really relaxed and immersed in it. At no point did I know why I was doing it, but I'll come on to that later. But yeah, in terms of the highlights of this game, it's very much all the inventive transitions, the visual design, the sound design, and just the really ingenious kind of ways that they drop you into a new bit of the game.
The interaction made me think that, in a way, this must be a lot of the experience of, being something like an astronomer or an astrophysicist, whereby you can't look through your telescope and see 27 things you can interconnect and make sense of. You spend ages looking for that one tiny thing, and then once you find it, you zoom in and all your attention is focused on that. That's what it made me think of as you were describing the interaction.
Yeah, I think moments of it probably do echo that. I've been rewatching a lot of some David Lynch recently, and I almost feel like it's more like that. You know, when there's just a random zoom into someone's face, like, and then you just zoom out and you're somewhere else. Like, it's a bit more like that, where you're like, okay, now I'm in this place. And sometimes you're in a place, like and I'll call it a panel because it is very much like a comic book. You end up in a panel and then you're like, there is nothing to do in that panel. So then that's another. So it's a really unusual game. But yeah, it definitely Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Before I talk
Why
too
don't you
much.
come on to the next bit about what wasn't so good? Because I feel like there are threads you're trying to connect in an order here.
Yeah, so what I found a bit frustrating about this game is just not knowing what you're doing at any given time. So you drop into the game with this introduction of a loose story, and I play a lot of games which have a loose narrative. I mean, we've talked about some before. I remember in the RT Immersal puzzle game episode you and I did a few months ago, we talked about that at length. So I don't have a problem with that having a loose narrative, but there were points where I was like, I literally don't know what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it looks great and I'm kind of having fun, but what is the game? So just as an example, you'll drop into a panel sometimes and you'll just sit there and not quite know what to do, and your clicker doesn't do anything, and so you've got this little cursor which is sometimes there and sometimes not there. So sometimes there's a really slow cutscene, so you're like, I'm not sure if I need to wait a little bit before the cutscene unfolds, or sometimes the cursor's only there after a little bit of time because you just have to watch a very, very brief animation because the character's kind of always alive. That's a really nice thing about it. So when you drop into another panel or another scene, there's always something alive there. There's always something going on, whether it's sort of a space-based scene or a nature-based scene, and it sort of takes you through all these different sort of chapters. Like one's called The Hunt, and I can't even remember the names of them now. I should have written that down. But like, yeah, there's all these different chapters that relate to survival and evolution and the Big Bang, and you drop into them and sometimes you just don't really know what you're doing. And other times you know what you need to do, like you need to collect an object, but you can't see the object and you don't know how to, because they're kind of panels, you have to sort of click in and out of them. So the panel, imagine it's like a frame on a film, and you can click to the right and then the panel will sort of either expand, so you'll get more of a widescreen view, or it will allow you to move from one side to the other, or sometimes it will scroll left or right, but it's never the same, which is one of the good things about the game, but it's also one of the things that becomes very confusing. Sometimes it feels like the click action doesn't quite work, and we were trying to figure out whether this was buggy, but it shouldn't be for such a small game, really having a bug problem, or whether the click spots were just so precise but without any actual visual marker sometimes that you were just missing them. So often we'd be clicking, like what's going on, and then after sometimes 10 minutes something would just change, and then suddenly we'd be into the next panel, and more often than felt right, we had no idea what we'd done to move the game on.
I think that
so that I'd
if
say
you
was
appreciate
the frustration of the game.
visuals of film noir, or noir comics,
you just didn't quite know,
you will appreciate this because there's so much richness in there
in
pulled from those genres.
So yeah, I think that was the sort of biggest
so I wouldn't not recommend this,
sort of
and I probably would recommend it to people who enjoy point and click games,
because this world,
but that is the game, like you're just clicking, and and just I think that if you look at this game and think
sensual,
that it might be kind of a puzzle-based
really
adventure,
sensual,
which I feel like it is at points. There is a bit of puzzling. I think that you might end up like me by the end, like really loving it initially because it's so different to anything else you played, and then by the end being a bit like,
I mean, let's just
what
do
did I actually do in this game? Because I feel like I just watched something
because the game was
really, really slowly unfolding, which is fine. But it's strange because there are parts of the game where you're quite active. So I just want to pick up on a couple of bits, moments of note in the game before I move on to like ratings and stuff. So they do this really cool thing with
more and more
jazz
as I went through
as
it.
well,
Initially, I was
where
like,
you
oh,
actually
this is
get
an
a
amazing
whole
game.
kind
I'm
of
just
chapter
along
where you
for a
get to
ride.
interact with
And I
music,
don't mind that.
which really I think
read
ties the
digital,
soundtrack and the sound
comics
work
quite a
throughout the
lot.
music together. And then
on
they
a
pick
lot
that
of,
up again at
especially
the
on
end with a
iPad
slightly
type
different
comic
style of
readers,
music.
you can
But
put it
there are
onto a
bits where
setting
you
where
just
it's
get
almost
to
sort of
have a
directed
whole
for you,
jazz
so it'll
improv
zoom into
session,
a
and that's
panel,
with
zoom out,
within
like,
a chapter
the
called
way it
improvisation.
scrolls over to a panel.
And
I'm
that
used
is
to
one of the
that
coolest
way
things
of
I've ever done in a
reading,
game. You
especially
just
with something
have
so
like a big
visually
interactive
stimulating.
panel of
But
stuff,
became
kind of piano
too
notes,
much of
kind
that
of like flowers and
after
symbols
a
and stuff,
while.
and you just get to like play them
Yeah, and I just
in any way you want.
increasingly,
And there's like
Alex
a
and I,
background
my partner and I
track, and
played
you
this
just
together,
improvise with it, and it's
and we just
really
reached the
cool.
end of the game,
And that's a strand of
we
the
were like,
game. Then there's
"This is
another
getting
strand
really
of the game where
tedious
you're
now,"
kind of
because we're just like, click,
out
click,
with the
click, what do we need to
planets,
do?
and
Click,
you're
click,
sort of
click, click, click,
connecting
click, 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 click,
stars.
click,
You're
click,
almost
Yeah.
building sort of like little galaxies and stuff.
So,
And that's sort of
so
a
does
bit
that sort
puzzly
of,
because they can only connect to
do
certain
those
stars.
issues
Like
with
there's a white
mechanics
star, a
affect
yellow star,
who
a
you would
grey star,
recommend it for?
and
Like, is there
and you
anything
have to
we
kind
need
of
to know
connect
about
them all
who,
together in a
like, who
certain
is
way
it
to then light
aimed at
everything up.
even, maybe?
This was
Did
amazing.
did they land for that audience,
So there
or
were
is it for
bits
someone
like
else?
that where I was like, this is so cool. And it's really hard to describe, but it was so, the whole
I don't know
screen
who
was
this is
full of
aimed at.
stuff
I
and
can see that this
everything
is
was
a passion
alive
project,
and you got to interact with it. And what
I
you did
think that
changed the way it
if
sounded
you
or
appreciate
looked. And that
the
was just
visuals
so
of
good.
film noir
But then the
or
bulk of the game,
noir comics,
you can't
you
affect
will
anything.
appreciate this because there's
Or
so
you're
much
doing just a
richness in
click
there,
and then it's transitioning
pulled
forward
from
and then a
those
click
genres.
and then transitioning all the way back out of the same thing that
So
you've
I
just gone
wouldn't not
forwards in
recommend this.
and having to repeat that several
and I
times.
probably would recommend it to
Oh,
people who enjoy point and
really?
click games.
Going backwards and forwards.
But that is the game. Like, you're just clicking. So I think that if you look at this game and think that
Other
it might be a
supermarkets
kind
are
of
available.
puzzle-based adventure,
Yeah, so
which I feel like it is.
I don't know
points,
if there's
there is a
anything
bit
else
puzzling.
that I need to say. I don't even know if has this made any
might
sense
end up
to
like
you?
me by the end, like really loving it initially because it's so different to anything else you played, and then by the end being a bit like, what did I actually do in this game? Because I feel like I just watched something really slowly unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
So your earlier
fine.
question was,
but it's strange.
Would this have been better as a graphic novel?
Quite active. So I just want to.
It kind of is a graphic
pick
novel.
up on a couple of
is my answer to that.
moments of note.
So I think that if you are totally cool to just go along with the ride and be directed by someone else,
the jazz,
which is sort of weird for a video
you
game.
actually get a whole kind of chapter where you get to interact with music.
That you feel like
really,
you're riding on someone else's camera and on someone else's
and then they pick that up again at the end
bit.
with a slightly different style of music.
Then,
but there are bits where you
play
just
it. Like
get
it is really, really. I can't
session,
stress enough how unique this game
called
is.
improvisation.
I really haven't played anything
that
like it
is
before.
one of the coolest things I've ever done in a game.
Would it also make a good just standalone graphic novel? Yeah, I'm sure it would. It would look gorgeous. And as I said, I'd hang any frame from it up on my wall.
And you just get to like
because it looks awesome.
Play them in any way you want. And there's like a background track, and you just and it's really cool. And that's a strand of the game. Then there's another strand of the game where you're kind of out with the planets,
for me,
sort of connecting stars.
It's really hard. At the beginning of this, I absolutely loved it, and then by the end, I was exhausted.
And that's sort of a bit puzzly because they can only connect.
I think it wore me down to a 7.
White star and a yellow star and a grey star. And you have to kind of connect them all together in a certain way to then light everything up. This was amazing. Yeah. So there were bits like that. I think so cool because it's really hard to describe, but it was
I kind of, if I was just rating everything except the gameplay, it would be like a 9 because everything else is amazing. But the gameplay just wasn't there. And also this kind of clicking issue,
and that was just so
and
good.
Just some of the repetition of things you had to click
you can't
gets very, very dull. And it also has about 3 endings,
just a click,
which
and
it
then
doesn't
it's
need.
transitioning forward, and then a click, and then transitioning all the way back out.
I think that if you're into that kind of genre and you like the artwork, just play it. It's not very long. It's probably
nothing you can do or change it.
4 hours.
Just click and move on.
We had a bit of a bug at the end, which meant
Thanks,
the last
Tesco
hour
delivery.
just kept freezing. I don't know if that was
other
our
supermarkets
system or the
are
game,
available.
but yeah.
So
just play it. Like I would recommend
I don't know
it.
if there's anything else that I need to say. I don't even know if has this made any sense to you.
Yeah. I understand. I understand it. Perhaps because I'm familiar with these kinds of antics as well. But I think it made sense. Before you go to your rating, I want to remind you of my earlier question, and then also if there's anything else you wanted to throw in.
So your earlier question was, would this have been better as a graphic novel? It kind of is a graphic novel, is my answer to that. So I think that if you are totally cool to just go along with the ride and be directed by someone else, which is sort of weird for a video game, that you feel like you're riding on someone else's camera and on someone else's actions a bit, then play it. Like, it is really, really, I can't stress enough how unique this game is. I really haven't played anything like it before. Would it also make a good just standalone graphic novel? Yeah, I'm sure it would. It would look gorgeous, and as I said, I'd hang any frame from it up on my wall because it looks awesome.
Nice. Very, very enticing. Very enticing descriptions, I feel. Give us some hard numbers then.
So for me, it's really hard. At the beginning of this, I absolutely loved it, and then by the end, I was exhausted. So I think it wore me down to a 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's always hard to review things which aren't typical of a genre because you can't be as comparative, right? But that seems fair.
Yeah, I think because I kind of, if I'm just rating everything except the gameplay, it would be like a 9 because everything else is amazing. But the gameplay just wasn't there. And also this kind of clicking issue and just some of the repetition of things you had to click gets very, very dull. And it also has about 3 endings, which it doesn't need. So, but I think that, if you're into that kind of genre and you like the artwork, just play it. It's not very long. It's probably took us about 4 hours. We had a bit of a bug at the end, which meant the last hour just kept freezing. I don't know if that was our system or the game, but yeah, just play it. Like, I would recommend it.
Good. All right. Well, I may very well do that. It's already on my list. I already put it on my list for later.
I think you will enjoy it.
How it goes.
I think you'll see what I mean, but you'll probably.
I like new experiences.
Yeah. So I feel like I've just sucked all the energy out of this now.
Like a black hole herself.
Well, yes, there is a lot of black hole in the game. Wasn't
that your name in uni?
Black hole. Was that because I spaghettified everything? Is that a racist slur?
I mean, it wasn't meant to be, but sure. Yeah, it's the spaghetti angle.
That's whenever I think of, even while we were playing the game, it mentioned bubble theory. And I was like, what about spaghettification?
Spaghettification. Quite so. No, I was going to say it's because there was no real proof of your existence beyond Stephen Hawking's writings. Does she exist? Does she not?
Was I mentioned in Stephen Hawking's, not in Stephen Hawking's work?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. There was no proof that you existed before then. That's the wonder of physics.
Well, on that note, we should wrap this up. So, 2 really different games we talked about today. So thank you very much for listening. Go and check them out. Let us know what you think as well. One is free. One is free if you've got Game Pass. So they're both kind of free. Check them out. Let us know what you think.
Slap the trout! Slap the trout!
Trout slapping fun times. Thank you very much again, Tim, for joining us on My Turn Podcast. And thank you for listening. Please give us a subscribe. It's very easy. Just click the button subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you are feeling generous, we'd love a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us get seen. So thank you very much for listening, and it's bye from me.
Sensual.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Catch you next time.